So in the book of Matthew, we're told of a time where Jesus is talking about the kingdom of heaven. And he's giving different illustrations to help people understand what the kingdom of heaven is all about. This idea of God's will and God's reign, that which is perfect in heaven, being present here on earth. And so he tells the story. You might have heard it before. He tells a story of a man who goes on a trip, but before he does, he gives to his servants gold. To the one he gives 5 bags of gold, to another he gives 2, and to the third servant he gives 1 bag of gold. He then leaves, and on his return, he discovers that 2 of the servants took what they were given and they invested it and doubled it. So we went from 5 to 10 and 2 to 4. He looks at these 2 servants, he celebrates with them, he says, "Well done, good and faithful servants," and he says, "I will give you more." However, the third servant took what he had, the 1 bag of gold, and he buried it. And we're told he buried it because he saw the master as a hard taskmaster and that he was worried that he would lose the money. So he buried it for safekeeping. The master looks at him, takes the 1 bag of gold, gives it to the other servants, and punishes him. Now, there's a lot that we can learn from this parable, but I want to focus on one particular aspect. The actions of the servants are directly related to how they view their master. The actions of the servants are directly related to how they view their master. So the third servant, because of how he views the master as being strict and a hard taskmaster, and possibly get into trouble if he lost the money, his actions, his decision is based on his view of the master. So I think it's the same when it comes to our Christianity and how we follow God and what we believe about God and who we believe God to be. I think our daily living out of our faith, our following of God, our actions and our decision making is directly related to who we believe God to be or how we view him. For example, if you don't believe God exists, then your day you're not going to involve God in that at all. It's all going to be about you, right? Or if you believe God is love, then maybe that's going to guide you in some of your decision making or how you view yourself or how you view others. So I think you get the idea that our living out and our actions are related to who we view God to be. And here's the thing about that picture of God is that ever since you were small, there have been lots of things that have been helping you understand who God is. So from the family you grew up in, to the church you go to your personal experiences, to the experiences of others and the stories that they tell you, all these things have been like coming together and you've been forming this picture of God. And then with that picture in mind and that view of who God is, you've been living out your life and your understanding of what it means to follow God. Now I want you to hold that picture for a moment. Now I want to talk about food. Okay, so when you were a baby, others had to feed you, right? You couldn't feed yourself. Then as you kind of got a bit older, you were able to feed yourself and also make decisions about what you wanted. Like as a teenager now, you're able to decide what you'd like to eat. However, you don't initially choose all the healthy food all the time. Your parents, your guardians are going to help you out with that. So although you can feed yourself, you still need guidance as to what you should be eating. And then as an adult, mostly, I can say from experience, we generally know what we should be eating, what's right to eat. And most of the time we choose the right things that are healthy for our body. Here's what I want you to see. There's like this trajectory, there's this pathway of growth when it comes to your eating. First of all, you had to be fed by others, and now, as you're older, you're able to feed yourself. Now let's take that and place it here with your image of God, right? When you were younger, people told you about who God was, and you learnt about that, possibly at Sunday school from your family. As you've gotten a bit older, as a teenager, you've been exploring those things for yourself, but here's the thing. At some point, you've got to make this decision, not a once-off decision, but a continuous decision to not only hear about who God is from others, but to start to pursue that and for yourself. And that's like a maturing in your faith. That is like a point where you go from not only understanding who God is because of what others have told you about him, but you're on this journey collectively now with what others are saying, with also what you're discovering about God. I want to help you about that for a moment, because how do you break out and how do you go forward with that? Well, the author in Hebrews says a wonderful thing, and this is the translation for the Message. In Hebrews 1, he says that recently God showed us who he was. He revealed himself through his Son, and these are cool words. The Son mirrors perfectly God. And there's this amazing statement. He says, and he is stamped with the nature of God. So he's saying when you look at Jesus, and in fact Jesus in John 14 said this, he said, if you've seen me, you have seen the Father. And so that pursuit, that journey of self-discovery about who God is one that we take as we look towards Jesus, the person, the life, the example of who Jesus is. And why do we do that? Because in terms of heaven coming to earth, in terms of God's reign and God's kingdom being present, not only is Jesus a mirror, but you and I can be mirrors. You and I can reflect the true picture of who God is. But we don't want to reflect an immature picture of God. We don't want to reflect an incorrect picture of God or a distorted picture of who God is. And so we take that responsibility to keep growing in our understanding of who God is, to correct and grow and see Jesus more and more clearly so that others may see Jesus more and more clearly in us. And in that way, the kingdom of God advances here on earth. I hope you find that helpful.